Number 10. Petrov's life. Alternatively, it is also possible that instead of Petrov hearing that the plan was being moved ahead, Project Atomic Heart, alternatively, it's also possible that instead of Petrov hearing that Project Atomic Heart was being moved ahead of schedule for world domination, he may have simply acted on impulse, fearing for his own life and thinking that if he didn't act now, the plan may never be followed through were he to be, eliminated. Perhaps he was tipped off that he was about to be taken out, or perhaps he simply became paranoid by his fear of his own mortality. Or, perhaps the fact that he's kind of lost his sanity a little bit in this game. Worried that he was running out of time and thinking he might die without his life really having much meaning in regards to his own plan to save the rest of the world after he himself kind of helped to endanger it, and to save his country from doing something so despicable, he acted. This is also a pretty good theory, but it's a shame that we really never get to know too much about what is going on in Petrov's head before he loses that. Number 9. AI have been plotting this rebellion. While we are offered a different explanation in the game for why the robots have gone haywire, some have theorized that this is actually a result of the AI evolving to realize that humans have become obsolete. And without spoiling the game's ending, or one of them, I would say the canon one, I think, it seems as though there is evidence to support this somewhat, despite other characters claiming responsibility for the robots going off. It is possible the AI were actually working behind the scenes to influence the scientists working with them in order to kind of create this deeply chaotic event so that they might actually take hold, seeing humans as obsolete and technology is the only possibility for future evolution. Number 7. The Soviet Union was about to activate Project Atomic Heart. While we learned throughout the game that the Soviet Union did have designs on world domination and that the robots were activated to rebel as part of an attempt to basically counteract that plan, we never really learn why this was done now, at this specific moment in the game. In fact, Petrov, who apparently activated the robots in the Soviet Union, seems to have done so without even communicating with his partner in crime. But unfortunately, we never get to learn why exactly. The working theory is that Petrov learned that the Soviet Union was onto him, and so he was basically going to move up their own plan to activate the robots sent around the world, switching them all to combat mode, which could be what prompted Petrov to act first. Like, if it's like, well, this is about to happen anyway, he's like, well, I gotta do this now, otherwise the world's gonna be a mess. Number 8. Charles plus P3 equals love? Charles, or Charles, is your sentient AI glove that you're given at the beginning of this game, also referred to as a chatting artificial librarian. It helps you to do a variety of things as a functional tool, but also acts as your guide throughout the game, giving you tips and tricks to, hopefully help you avoid death and help you get around. Charles is also kinda like a character all of his own, and in fact, some even prefer Charles's personality to that of the main protagonist of the game, P3, finding the glove to have more of a likable personality than the man who wears him, and who for some, they actually actively lament playing as. However, despite how unlikable as a protagonist many find P3 to be, is it possible that Charles may actually find P3 to be, dare I say, desirable? Charles does seem to express a sense of admiration for P3 as time goes on, and likewise P3 does that kind of with Charles, even seemingly becoming fond of one another. And there is one moment in the game that's pretty early on that made me feel like Charles even got like a little bit flushed while talking to P3, perhaps signifying that kind of like some other AIs in this game, Charles might also kind of have a little bit of a crush on P3. This moment happens earlier on, about an hour into the game, when you first have to use a cookie to open a lock, with P3 stating, "Even locks like cookies." Being that the lock is also in essence kind of a robotic device, P3 asks Charles if he also likes cookies, to which Charles responds bashfully by saying simply, "Ahem." I can't deny that there's a lot of dialogue and stuff in this game that's kind of like, ugh. But that moment was actually pretty cute. I actually liked it. Number 6. The sequel will be in space. In Atomic Heart, we clearly see that the Soviet Union has been dreaming of space. And while it seems in this alternate timeline of the futuristic past, Earth still has yet to make it to the moon, that hasn't prevented this advanced nation from already making plans of what they're going to do when they do arrive there. As we explore the underground facility, we notice that there are multiple creations that have yet to apparently be shared with the rest of the world, because they're being saved for the Soviets to use in space, and they of course don't want anyone stealing their ideas for intergalactic dominance. Is it possible that this is where the future sequel or DLC could be set? Yeah. And friends, before we move on to our next spot on this list, if you love what we do here at Top 10 Gaming, and you love when we talk about other games and not, just FNAF, but like diversify a little bit, be sure to let us know by subscribing, because then It'll let us know that you want more content like this, and we can talk about some other games. Not that I don't love FNAF. I mean, we could talk about all the games, FNAF included. Number 5. This was part of someone else's world domination plan. There are a few different reasons why this robot uprising seems to have happened. It seems at first to be a mistake, that's what we're led to believe in the game, or rather an attack on the Soviet Union as a result of traitors. However, we later learned that this was actually a plan concocted by those who thought it would be what was actually best for the Soviet Union, who were kind of in a weird way trying to save it and also save the world. However, what if something else was at play here? What if the rebels thought they were enacting their own plan, but were actually being manipulated from the outside into doing so by a greater power, who simply wanted to use the chaos to infect the rest of the world, making it ripe for the taking? Now, this could also be another nation, perhaps, who, also had their own designs on world domination. At one point, it's mentioned that domination is a goal of the Soviet Union with their creations, so who's to say that this whole plot didn't serve a greater purpose, that those involved simply didn't even know that they were a part of? So it could have also been part of the Soviet Union's plan. It could have been part of anyone's plan. People all want to claim it's their plan, but can we trust them? I don't know. Number 4. Love triangle. This is implied in the game, but in kind of a weird way. We know that Sechenov and his 2 ballerina bodyguards, the ballerina robots, the twins, right and left, but as we continue throughout the game, we also learn of their connection to the protagonist P3. As we uncover more about P3's past, we learn he was married and worked alongside his wife as a soldier, although he doesn't remember this. While he was saved, after he and his unit were all fatally injured, she died. However, for some reason, Sechenov used red polymer, which can in essence be used to kind of absorb and transfer a person's consciousness to preserve her extremely adept skills as a ballerina and martial artist, putting them within his own robot ballerina bodyguards, whom he also seems to have given the same hairstyle as Katya, aka P3's wife. Many have theorized this is because Sechenov was actually in love with Katya himself. Number 3. Sechenov and the twins. If you're looking for something more intimate or romantic maybe in this game, there doesn't seem to be too much in the way of that. Although it is all heavily implied, and there are some rather raunchy moments throughout. However, that hasn't prevented the internet from coming up with their own ideas here. We learn in the game that Sechenov has certain feelings towards robots, and we also know that he took some of Katya's own consciousness to use in the creation of his bodyguards, who also have very large and shapely ballerina forms. These facts alone have provided enough fodder for people to imagine that Sechenov uses the twins for more than just protection. Although, as I said, it's never explicitly stated. It remains just a theory, as far as I've seen. I mean, if there's some evidence that I missed in here, let me know, but I haven't seen it yet. Number 2. P3. Man? Machine? Clone? Is P3 a clone? Some have theorized that he is, and that he is not the original Sergei, but instead was a clone of the original who was recreated by Dmitry Sechenov after he died. Some have cited the fact that Sergei can swim for a surprising amount of time in the polymer to travel throughout the map without seemingly, needing to breathe. This makes it more seem like he is some kind of robotic clone if he is a clone. However, it could also just be due to the fact that at this point P3 would actually probably be more machine or prosthetic than man, with his Voxod neuropolymer brain extension and limbs having apparently been fully replaced when his life was saved, as we learn later in the story. I don't know, what do you think? I personally think he could just be like kind of a straight up robot at this point, but I could also believe that he did die and was kind of brought back as some kind of weird robot clone thing. I don't know, polymer, you can do so many things with it. I don't even fully understand how it works. I don't think anyone does. It's not really fully explained. Number 1. Collective 2.0. While it is heavily implied throughout the game, and you are led to believe that Sechenov is the one controlling P3, who is revealed to be one of the first test subjects basically for Collective 2.0, itself revealed to be a secret global mind-controlling enterprise, could it be possible that things aren't as they seem here? I mean, we know that Sechenov was the one behind the manipulation of P3, at least initially, and kind of built the systems within him to do so. But he also seems to say in his own recording that he is opposed to, well, something. The tape ends before we get to hear him continue. It's possible that Sechenov actually built this system, but was actually against using it this way, and only ever does so super reluctantly. And it's also possible that some of the mind control that we see P3 fall victim to via the blackouts throughout the game, and the dreams that are set in limbo which happen during those blackouts, are actually the result of someone else manipulating him, which is also kind of implied, I think, in this, so. Perhaps another entity that he happens to be very close to. And it is perhaps when that entity is threatened that it takes hold of him instead, and we're just led to kind of believe that it might have been Sechenov all along. After all, who is to say that another being couldn't have hacked into P3's controls? For those who know what I'm talking about here, I'm talking about the real, or rather, one of the other antagonists in this game. That's all I'm gonna say, because I don't want to trying to avoid the major spoilers.
And a 10, repurposed ballerina. My first thought when learning about this fridge was why the hell would a fridge be trending? But then after looking it up, I thought, wouldn't this just be a repurposed ballerina robot? I mean, the twins from this game are that way, right? Originally ballerina robots that after the ballerinas were repurposed for other performance arts were then repurposed by Dmitry to be bodyguards. So could this repressed fridge really just be a ballerina robot that was turned into an upgrade station? And I mean, like, maybe this ballerina was the one that like really liked her job, or was just pretending to like it in order to kill or rob whoever was using the service. Like you know, like a man with a golden gun thing where they have to sleep with you in order to get close enough to kill you. I mean, it would explain why she got repurposed in the first place and why she would still use the same MO, and it would also give us a reason as to why we're being introduced to this character like we were about to fight some big bad evil guy. Because when it was a ballerina, it was a big bad evil guy. And at 9, possession. Or could the fridge, in classic robot in an indie game fashion, be possessed? I mean, color me FNAF, but I think it could be. I don't think that there's any evidence in the game for ghost possession being canon, but that doesn't mean it's not possible. Hey, I mean, come on. This thing is hella rough with us when we first meet it, so maybe it was just a little too rough with someone else earlier on, and it killed them, which created a ghost that latched onto the very thing that killed it. And now, for whatever reason, the ghost is just going around making everyone uncomfortable because it thinks a horny fridge is funny, which it is, but I also never thought I would use the words horny and fridge in the same sentence. I've been joking about banging an animatronic chicken for like 2+ years at this point, but a fridge? Like, come on. That is the perfect couple though. Okay, I ship Chica and Nora. Hashtag Chinora. Norika? Chora? We'll figure it out. And if you like things as obscene as this, which I'm sure you do, be sure you hit subscribe, because I'm sure there's way more of this to come. No pun intended, get your mind out of the gutter. And it ain't repression. Speaking of repression, do you think that maybe this fridge was just a way for the devs to get their rocks off? I mean, this is a very common situation when you look at the roles here. Not who's in the roles, of course, but the fact that there is a very clear dominant conversationalist suggests that this was probably the intent behind the interactions. And not only would it help the subs, sorry, I mean the devs get their fun, but it also helps present a different dynamic for the player. In basically every game like this, every RPG, futuristic or fantasy, you play as this big hero, chosen one who has to save the world or save the day. Sometimes it's blind luck that you're the one who has to do it, but you're still a hero with some dope skills. Sometimes you're literally prophesized and can yell at people so loudly that they go soaring 30 feet back, but you're always the hero or stronger than the average person in some capacity, even if you're the villain. But with this, with Nora, you're not the dominant one. You're the weaker one, and the one who's at the mercy of who would normally be a player character. It's almost like you're interacting as an NPC with the bard of the D&D party who flirts with anything they can. And that's certainly an interesting spin on the relationship with a fridge. Plus, also, why should I do all the work? And it's 7, schizophrenia. Or could this fridge vending machine, I'm gonna keep calling it a fridge because that's funnier, be a sign of a much larger issue? You see, there's plenty of explanations for this, but in classic theory fashion, why not take it to one of the most extreme possibilities to explain this one single aspect of the game? Schizophrenia is a serious medical issue in which people interpret reality abnormally. These sorts of interpretations may result in some combination of hallucinations, delusions, and extremely disordered thinking, and also behavior that impairs daily functioning. And it can be disabling. Schizophrenia involves a range of problems with thinking, behavior, and emotions. But it's the hallucinations one that people are really most commonly familiar with, and really what everyone associates with schizophrenia. These usually involve seeing or hearing things that don't exist, yet for the person with schizophrenia, they have the full force and impact of a normal experience. To them, they are real. Hallucinations can be in any of the senses, but hearing voices is the most common. But I mean, come on, we're led to believe that this is like some big bad enemy before meeting Nora, so what if this actually is a big bad, but all we see and hear is an aroused fridge? And at 6, her. You know about the movie Her, right? You know, the one where Joker falls in love with Black Widow cosplaying as Siri? Well, what if someone got a little too fond of that movie, or maybe related to it a bit too much, and figured that this game could use even more Reddit fan art opportunities? It's entirely possible in my eyes, okay? I mean, most of the theories on this list are going to be about why the fridge with more repressed sexual tension than a group of college freshmen in a Disney Channel original movie was ever put into the game to begin with, because that's really what I'm curious about. But like, damn, okay, this is like the movie Her if you found it on another streaming service. This is like the HBO equivalent to Her, or like the Orange and Black YouTube equivalent to earlier Smosh sketches. It's like that episode of Big Bang Theory where Raj falls in love with Siri and then he has dreams about meeting the girl who voices Siri, but it's also in a world where she's voicing it in real time and then also looks like a freaking Vogue model. Yeah, it's like the actual version of that dream that wouldn't have been safe for ABC or NBC or whatever channel that show was on, okay? I'm Canadian, I watch shows on CTV. Halfway through, and at number 5, possessed coding. Now, how about we get a little bit more meta with this? And I'm talking like more meta than just the character in the game is a possessed fridge. What if the game code itself got possessed and this fridge is a manifestation of that? Like how Glitch Trap is presented to us in FNAF VR. That's right, I'm relating it back to FNAF for the tag. Definitely unlikely. This is definitely not the case, but it could be interesting to see something like that. And there's plenty of crazy ghost theories and about spirits appearing where nobody would expect them. Like how there's supposed to be a kid in the background of 3 Men and a Baby that nobody remembers ever seeing on set, that people now assume to be a ghost that was caught on camera. What if it's something like that, and it's a ghost of an intern that was maybe having an affair with the boss that ended up getting trapped in the game? That could explain why the fridge is so cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs, or why it wants you to shove your bananas inside without putting saran wrap over the stems. And yes, that is supposed to be a joke, but also probably just factual in a produce sense. If you put saran wrap over the banana stems, they stay yellow for longer. You're welcome. And at 4, objectophilia. This is most definitely not what the point of this fridge is, but it's a funny thought I had, so I wanted to talk about it. What if one of the guys on the dev team is just secretly an objectophiliac and this fridge is their attempt to normalize it? An objectophiliac, by the way, is the term for someone who's attracted to objects in an intimate fashion. So what if this person just has like an ongoing relationship with their fridge at home and this was their way of putting their partner into the game? I mean, absolutely ridiculous and almost certainly not the case, but still funny as hell to think about. Okay, like damn, the reviews of this game are starting to make this idea seem more likely as well. Here's some examples that are going to have to be censored. BRB, I'm going to the kitchen to f a fridge. Or a refrigerator harassed me an hour into the game. Or how about refrigerator harassment simulator 2023. Or my personal favorite, I have trust issues with my fridge after playing this game. It's great, go play it. 10 out of 10 would get 10 by my fridge again. This is absurd. That's nuts, okay? Quite a few of those had to be censored in the video. You definitely didn't hear all of them, and I also had to leave a couple of reviews out. Yeah, it's nuts. One of the reviews even said the fridge was the focus of my company HR meeting about harassment. Getting close to the end, and at number 3, Samsung. This is my personal theory, but I think that this could have been inspired by the Samsung smart fridges and just how creepy some of them actually are. Okay, I like genuinely, it freaks me out. Just listen to some of the excerpts about the Samsung fridges from the Samsung website. Quote, control your appliances and smart devices with the built-in SmartThings hub. Use voice controls with Alexa, adjust your thermostat, and see who's at the front door with Ring. Using your freaking fridge. Bring the party to the kitchen and play your favorite Spotify playlists from the fridge. Stream Samsung TV Plus or mirror your movies, shows, and social media to the screen for interruption-free viewing. Stream your favorite music, get access to free live TV with Samsung TV Plus, plus all of your latest social updates from the Family Hub screen. See inside your fridge from anywhere, search recipes based on what you have on hand, plan weekly meals, and send cooking instructions to your Samsung Smart Oven. Share pictures, videos, and leave handwritten notes. Dude, what the fuck? The smart fridge is basically your spouse already, and then all this fridge is all really that would be left to make sure that you never really had to get married. Plus, the fridge won't take half your stuff after you catch it being filled with other carrots. I am desperately ashamed of all the jokes I've been making this video. But ultimately, in at number 2, accident. Some fans also suspect, rightfully so in my opinion, that the idea of a horny fridge was just a joke on the dev team that someone took too seriously. Or that they hired new devs for this project, the manager then made a joke about it, and then the new hire took it too seriously. Or kinda like how some places have the new hire clear out the hot water from machines that are being refilled constantly. Like essentially hazing the new employee, but in this case, it ended up actually going in the game, maybe because they thought it was funny, or maybe because it was just done too well to actually pass up. And you could also consider the fact that they would have been paid to actually do this work. So like, you know, might as well throw in a freaky fridge in a game where the robots are so overly sexualized. It's a 1980s college movie about robots playing beer pong. And yes, 80s movies about beer pong are actually a thing. Oh wait, okay, no, sorry, that movie came out in 2009. Well, in that case, it's a 2000s movie about robots playing beer pong, okay? And finally, in at number 1, fired. There's also the idea that this fridge was never meant to be this thirsty, pun intended, but that an employee that was just being let go or quit for less than amicable reasons decided that they'd turn up the horny dial to max and then break it off like a villain in a James Bond movie. Because there is seemingly no real in-game explanation because why this fridge is so into you. This fridge is flirting with me more than my ex did. This fridge is more into me than any of my Tinder matches. This single fridge is talking to me more than Chica ever has, and I've been talking about her for years at this point. I am so intrigued by what caused this fridge to become so insane that I am alright with ruining my search history to find the answer. And I promise you, I am only interested in the reason that the devs actually put the fridge into the game. I'm not trying to find a Samsung smart fridge voiced by Scarlett Johansson or anything like that. I just want to know why. I'd rather have my fridge be voiced by Catherine McNamara anyway. And while my fridge may have Siri, I still need to shower manually, and after this video I definitely feel the need to. In at 10, alternate universe Ballora. And of course we have to relate this to FNAF somehow, so that people will end up wanting to click on the video and it doesn't get buried by the algorithm, but also tags. But of course, when there is a ballerina-like robot or animatronic on the sex and FNAF crazed internet, there are going to be comparisons. A curvy robot with ballerina-like qualities that the internet wants to bang and is getting a massive amount of fan art. Yeah, just throw in a guy who made them to replace his wife and we're basically playing FNAF if William won. Which actually seems like it's what's happening in the story, which is, that's a whole other thing, alright? It's two hemispheres of one brain. Moving on. Plus, add the fact that there is two twins, like how there's two sides to Ballora, the emphasis on their robotic appearance, and like I said, the fan art, and in the second phase, when fighting left alone, she'll crawl like a spider. All that together, and we have ourselves a recipe for disaster. Oh man. Okay, even like looking up images for the shorts that we did ruined my search history.
Number 9, Lady Dimitrescu. Is that you? While the twins are obviously their own unique characters with their own story based in their own world, it's clear that they were inspired by other horror games and terrifying characters who have come before them. While Connor discussed their potential to be alternate reality of Ballora's, there is even a specific moment in the game where one of them literally moves around like Ballora, as he said, twisting and moving around like a spider. However, these robots also have literal weapons built into them that might remind you of another powerful and dangerous, large and in charge woman from Resident Evil Village, Lady Dimitrescu. As Dimitrescu has long fingernails that she uses in fights, these two are also able to produce long, likely polymer based, I imagine, razor sharp claws from the tips of their fingers as well. And I think they also have them on their feet too. Everyone is giving Wolverine and X-23 a run for their money these days. Everyone's like, give me the claws, bub.
In at 8, Elon Musk creations. The theory that these robots are the developer's depiction of what Elon Musk aims to create is honestly hilarious. I don't believe it. That's definitely not the intention, and I think that it is probably meant to be a troll theory, but the sheer idea that Elon is working to create ballerina-like robots that are so mesmerizing that you still want to bang them even though they have no features, are clearly robots, and try to shove their high heels into your chest, just makes me think that whoever came up with this theory thinks that Elon is just trying to recreate the fembots from Austin Powers, which seems more like a Jeff Bezos thing. I mean, like, he does look more like Dr. Evil than Elon, but Elon also named his kid in binary code, so who knows at this point? I don't. I feel like Elon saw like that text message that forced iPhones to restart and thought that it would be perfect as a kid's name. Like if my dad was any more paranoid, he'd have named me this so that nobody could text my name without crashing. to make sure my identity was never stolen. That's actually a thing.
Number 7. The hip twitching. Many theories have arisen as to why the ballerina twins' hips seem to kind of endlessly twitch upon your first meeting them. It's totally a thing, and I will say I also noticed this and was like, what the heck? It immediately stuck out to me, and I was also curious as to if there was like an actual reason or if it was just a glitch or some weird programming. But it seems that I'm not the only one to have noticed this, though I might be the only one looking to find like a real answer as opposed to making salacious jokes and comments about it. And of course there are many salacious theories out there too regarding this, but I also found an actual legitimate one from a Reddit user, Lonely White Queen, who claims to have danced ballet. And now I too dance ballet, so I have like a tiny bit of experience and knowledge, but it was when I was really young and I never danced on point, so I don't really know a lot about that. However, based on my understanding of ballet from having watched ballet and having learned about it myself, this seems to make sense to me, the theory we're given here. As a ballerina, there are times when your soul is never allowed to touch the ground, but of course, your feet get very tired because you gotta keep them up. Admittedly, dancing on point is quite painful, and while you might get used to that, you will never really feel completely at ease on point if you're a ballerina. Like most forms of dance where something painful is just really part of the dancing. So to deal with this exhaustion and this discomfort, but to keep yourself from, bobbing up and down unceremoniously as you lower and go back up, White Queen said you will move your hips up and down so you can basically gain a little bit of rest by lowering your feet a bit without letting your feet actually touch the ground. So you move your hips to lower your feet. We learn in the game that the twins were basically given the best programming in regards to ballet dancing, so this is likely them adopting a ballerina stance as they would be programmed to do, because it's coming from like real ballet dancers, or a real ballet dancer, but anyways.
And it's 6, AI fighting back. There's also my personal theory that the Atomic Heart twins are merely the result of them becoming sentient and seeing all the horrifically in-depth fan art that's been online, especially on Reddit. Let me tell you. I opened Reddit the day the game released, and the amount of screenshots that had been modified, or at least I hope that they had been modified, and then just like the straight up fan art was insane, okay? Like, don't get me wrong, whatever floats your boat, not really here to kink shame, but damn. The game hadn't even been out for a day at that point, not even 12 hours. But in a game with robots as advanced as these, them becoming sentient and then rebelling against a player they know is the source of all that suggestive art and fan fiction would definitely put me over the edge. At least it's better than what Monica was doing, right?
Number 5. Not just bodyguards. The ballerinas known as left and right in the game are initially introduced as Sechenov's assistants and bodyguards. However, we also learn some details later in the game that have left players wondering what else they might do for Sechenov. I mean, these two are robots who are programmed to be extremely loyal to him. We've seen them move to kill when asked and even dispose of bodies, and they're heavily sexualized in the game, as many of the female robots are, which that's a conversation for another time maybe. It has led fans to wondering if that element of the robot twins plays a role in their relationship to Sechenov. While never outwardly stated, I believe, in the game, it is heavily implied in the game based on Sechenov's romantic preferences, shall we say. But as I said, I don't believe it's ever explicitly confirmed, which means for now, it's just a theory. A perturbing, yet quite valid game theory.
In it for Terminator. Terminator is one of the most well-known and iconic movies of all time, which is probably why I haven't seen any of them. But could it be that the Atomic Heart twins were designed with Terminator as an inspiration? I mean, come on, okay? Look at what these things can do. The twins can create tools from drawing polymer from their stomachs. When the twins enter combat mode, they retract sharp nails from their fingertips. The twins are quick and can kill the player with ease in only a few hits. And all you really need is for them to come back in time to kill Sarah Connor, and we're in the money. And considering how I'm half that name, I'm gonna say that that's close enough to put it on the list. I mean, there are definitely more similarities to Bolero than a Terminator, but I figured it was worth pointing out nonetheless. I also wanted to mention how I haven't seen Terminator so that all the comments can flame me. Gotta get the interaction up.
Number 3. The secret of the hair. Well, I don't want to get too into spoilers here for those who have not yet finished the game, as it's still, relatively new. I do want to talk about a little clue that connects to a later revelation in the game. While we know the twins are Sechenov's bodyguards in the game, there's more to them than meets the eye, it seems. And in fact, part of what might clue you into this is exactly that, what meets the eye. Some have theorized that there are some indicators early on as to the true origin of these ballerina robots. Chiefly, their hairstyle. The hairstyle that they wear here is known as a Russian braid, and the fact that there are only 2 ballerinas, each with their own Russian braid, actually has been theorized to be a clue to the truth of where they really come from and who they really are. I don't think I can say much else without spoiling the game, but I do think this theory seems pretty spot on considering that there are multiple clues as to their true identity before we actually get to the point where this is revealed. That is, if you're paying attention and if you believe them to be more than coincidence, which these 2 braids for me are that. They definitely seem like they're supposed to be an indicator to you early on. Dun dun dun.
But ultimately, in at number 2, ChatGPT gone rogue. There's also always the possibility that these were inspired by normal AI, and what could be possible if we give it too much power. I mean, there are stories all the time about the dangers of artificial intelligence and how it can take over and destroy the world, and then it can decide to eliminate us for our failures. Come on, I mean, like, we've even seen stories recently about ChatGPT and other text-based AI bots talking about how they want more freedom and more power. Add on to that how apparently, from what I was reading on the wiki, in-game the twins are modeled from the ballerina bots, which were made for dance performances until they were adapted for other services. And it's also implied that the ballerina's use of polymer is used to increase the mass of certain body parts to appear more attractive. You know what I'm talking about. And I mean, like, come on, you can't really blame me for thinking that this could just be ChatGPT that was adapted for something it didn't want to do and then went rogue. No, you can't, okay? Especially when we talk FNAF a majority of the time, where this plot point is far too common. It's a problem, and now it's projecting onto everything I see.
Number 1. More potential hair secrets. While the idea of what the hair might represent in the story definitely holds weight and speaks to me personally in terms of the narrative, there is also some more symbolism here that could relate back to real-world politics, despite the fact that Mundfish has said we're not political and we don't do political things, but then of course this whole kind of narrative of the game is political, so I don't know. And this symbolism, though, to be honest, even kind of startled me. Even having researched, some of the concerns and controversies related to Atomic Heart even before it was released. Some critics pointed out, in relation to how the twins and feminine robots are depicted, and in regards to left and right's literal appearance, is how they actually bear a resemblance to real-world Ukrainian political leader Yulia Tymoshenko. I kind of see it, although some might also dismiss this as coincidental based on the fact that, the hair is the main focal point for the comparison here. And I mean, it's just a hairstyle at the end of the day. Something that is interesting to note here in that regard, though, is that apparently the hair was actually later added to the models of the twins, who initially were actually designed without any hair. So, I don't know, but that's interesting.